unlike other charities in the UK, we're guided by a principle. And our principle is the golden rule. And this is the idea of treating others and the planet as you'd wish to be treated. So we look to introduce that principle into different spaces through our education, leadership, and our cultural programs. In education, we manage a platform called Global Dimension. And this is a leading platform which helps teachers bring sustainability and global issues into the classroom. We host lots and lots of resources, so I encourage you to check it out. We've also got our classroom calendar that we publish every year that goes out just before summer. And that really provides a map of all the global dates happening across the academic year, and can really provide the jumping off point for teachers to get conversations about sustainability going in the classroom. And then we've just recently on Global Dimension launched our Classroom of the Month Award, which really celebrates those teachers who are pioneering sustainability in creative ways. So if after today you have a new idea and try something new out, please do think about applying for our award. So just in terms of the webinar and why we decided to do this together, we published a report at the end of last year called Rebooting Education. And this, we surveyed 7,000 teachers, and that was really to explore and get a sense check on how teachers are feeling about the state of education, and also what their hopes and aspirations are for the future. And I'm sure many of the themes that came up in that will be very familiar to you. There were real concerns raised about the current curriculum and whether it's equipping young people for the future adequately, and also teachers really feeling that environment, sustainability, and well-being and values should really be at the center of learning, but they're not currently. We did a bit of a deep dive into sustainable education, recognizing that it's a broad concept to look at what does this really mean, how's it being realized in the classroom, and what are the main barriers. And some of the barriers that came up were around lack of time, lack of training, and as it's not an exam-focused subject, it's not really a priority. That said, there's a real desire from teachers to be doing more, and the majority had managed to introduce sustainability into the classroom in some form over the past year, which we thought was really encouraging. So off the back of the report, I think for Reboot, we recognise that there are some really fundamental changes in the education system which would be desirable. But in the meantime, we really want to support our teaching community to bring sustainability into the classroom. And it's something that they've told, you know, or you've told us you're struggling to do. And that's really where Ed3 DAO came in, because we were talking to Vriti about it. And she felt that, you know, there could be a really interesting space to see how AI can help teachers respond to some of the challenges in teaching sustainable education. So at that point, I think I'll hand over to Vriti to get going. And yes, please, you know, post any questions into the chat, and we'll continue to manage that. Is that okay, Vriti?
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much for the introduction. Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here. And I'm very excited to talk about AI for sustainable classrooms. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to not only be here, but really investigate what this might look like for you. Reboot the Future has done some awesome work, and we're so excited to be partnering with them. Just a little bit of a background on me. I am a former teacher with Teach for America. I was a kindergarten teacher at first, and then I actually became a dean and helped teachers learn about teacher teaching. And then I developed the professional learning systems at a public charter school in New York. And then I taught as an adjunct professor, and then I also was at a global school building professional development ecosystems across South Asia, East Asia, Europe, and in the Americas. And most recently, I founded an organization called Ed3 DAO. It's ed3dao.com, and we basically help educators upskill using emerging technologies. And the reason we do that is because folks that are really interested in optimizing their work, optimizing their time in schools, we want them to understand how powerful emerging technologies can be to actually enhance your teaching. And so today, what we're going to talk about is, what AI is, what are chatbots, but then we're going to go into sustainability education specifically. We unfortunately have lost 17 minutes of our time, so we're going to have to go a little bit faster, and I'll try to sort of like, take questions as I go. But while I'm doing this introduction, we have a chat in this Google Meet. So if you can start dropping in, number one, what you teach, and number two, where you're calling in from, that would be a really great way to introduce yourselves and your name as well. And so today, as I said, we're going to go into sustainability education. We're going to model some things using some AI tools that I like to use very frequently. And then we're going to do some wrap up and reflections. So just in the chat, if you could drop in your name, what you teach, and where you're calling in from, that'd be awesome. And Rebecca, if you want to model that for everybody, that would be great. Awesome. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Duchess. Very cool. So we have England, we have Dubai. So we did a survey when you guys registered, and we got 134 responses for what you all are really struggling with when it comes to sustainability learning. And these are the results of that survey. So we found that most of you are really struggling with time. So what does that really mean? The time piece, 35% of you said, I don't have time to plan sustainability learning. I don't have time in the curriculum to implement it. I don't have time during the day to integrate it. And I also don't have time to prep the materials to actually be able to teach it. And this is, as you can see in the chat, we've got folks from all over the place. We've got folks from India and Portugal and UK. And so, the fact that most of you are picking time, this actually aligns very well to other data that we have about how teachers are actually finding it very difficult to integrate sustainability. So we'll talk about that today, and we'll talk about how you can actually how time doesn't have to necessarily be an issue if you're thinking about the planning right. The second thing that a lot of you talked about was resources. So having access to case studies, to activities, to tools, to local connections, to do experiential learning, videos and links. And so we're going to talk about how you can get access to really interesting resources very quickly and much faster than you could before with the use of AI. And then equally with resources, a lot of you thought creating great lesson plans was an issue. So we're talking about creating engaging activities, creating relevant activities that are contextualized for students, creating authentic experiences that are localized, creating integrated or interdisciplinary experiences. So one of the things that I'll talk about later is, sustainability education, just like social emotional learning, shouldn't necessarily be a totally different sort of subject that you need to teach separately. It can be integrated into everything that you do. And so how do you put that into interdisciplinary learning? We'll talk a little bit about that. And then also, how do you create outcomes-based lesson plans, right? How do you make sure that what you're teaching is actually what you're trying to sort of get to at the very end? Awesome. Thank you guys for all the introductions. Great to meet you all. And then the next thing was the systems issues. This was a smaller percentage that you guys named, but I thought it was a really important thing to name because we all work, as educators in oftentimes rigid systems, and we have to align what we do to the syllabus or to the standards or to the mandates that we have or frameworks. Or the fact that our schools don't support experiential learning or trips or field trips and things like that. And so those are the things that we need to work through as educators. And because you all are superheroes doing the work that you do, we can sort of think about this different sort of solutions that we can put into place in order to not necessarily push leadership, into an uncomfortable position, but also to be able to do what you need to do and maybe even convince leadership that what you're doing is the right pathway. Awesome. I see some Ed3 DAO folks in here too. Good to see you here, Victor. So let's first do a really quick introduction on what is generative AI, just so that you understand where we're starting from, and then we'll go into sustainability learning. So generative AI is different than regular AI. What actually, what AI actually is the theory and the development of machines that can perform tasks like human, right? So it's AI is basically how well can a machine do something that emulates or simulates human actions. The next part, the sort of next layer down, so from artificial intelligence, there's a layer called machine learning. And machine learning is exactly what it sounds like. It's the ability for machines to learn from data, right? And it doesn't include human intervention. So we have artificial intelligence, which is how well can machines emulate humans. Then we have machine learning, which is how well can machines learn like humans, but without human intervention. The next layer down is deep learning, where you can mimic human brain using neural networks, which is what everybody's talking about with these large language models, the stuff that OpenAI uses, the stuff that Google uses, all that kind of stuff. And this basically allows AI and machine learning to be able to create connections between many different pathways and be able to actually, which is the last layer, generate new information, right? So you can see the sort of like transition. So historically, we started off with AI, then scientists were able to develop machine learning, then deep learning, and now generative AI has, emerged. And generative AI uses all those other things to basically generate new content on pre-trained data. Now, AI has been around for a really long time, but Gen AI is very new, right? It is a very new concept, and it is very pretty revolutionary if you guys have used any of those AI tools. And the way that generative AI functions is basically it can create like a feedback loop within itself. So what it does is it receives data from a data set. So let's say if you're interacting with OpenAI or ChatGPT, it takes that information. Also, it takes information, billions of pieces of information from the internet, and then it transforms it and analyzes it. So it analyzes all that data using those neural networks and transformers to basically make sense of it. Then it connects that information and it predicts what's going to happen next, right? So it's not necessarily creating any new information. It's not necessarily inventing anything new. It's basically pattern matching, right? So it's like if you think about like A-B patterns of things you learn in kindergarten, this is just like a much more complex version of that. And so whenever it's creating new content, it's actually just predicting what the next pixel might be. So if you're using like Google email, Gmail, for example, and it predicts the next 5 words, it's because while you're typing the email, it's because it's using all of the information it has from all the people that have generated emails. And based on human language, it's saying, okay, well, you want to go where? You want to go to the park because of all the other context that it has. Then it generates the new content based on the patterns that it matches. And then it starts again. Basically, there's a feedback loop that makes it stronger, faster, and more reliable. One of the reasons why OpenAI and ChatGPT and Perplexity and all these other tools are improving so much, and have improved so much in the last year, is because now it has billions of pieces of data to work from. I use ChatGPT and Perplexity and all those tools like, I don't know, 10 times a day, meaning that, if I'm using it 10 times a day, then the 50 million people that are also using it, it's getting all that sort of bits of data, and it's getting basically free training to get better and better and better. So that's basically how generative AI works. So we're going to do a really quick activity here. We're going to do a true or false activity. Let's see how well you really know Gen AI. I want you to put in the chat a true or false based on what the question that I asked. So the first question is, generative AI can think like humans. Do you think that is true, or do you think that's false? Please put a true or a false in the chat. And I'm not going to give you the answer until I see a good amount of true and falses. Oh, I see Marco used his emoji to do a false. I see Padmini said false. All right, great. I'm seeing a lot of falses. I'm seeing some trues. All right. So generative AI cannot think like humans, but it can in some ways. And so let me explain what I mean here. So last year, is everyone familiar with Bloom's taxonomy? It's a pretty common sort of, framework that educators often use. Basically, it helps you map cognitive domains for learning. Great, I see Zoe. Thank you so much for the thumbs up. Please use your emojis freely. I love getting that feedback. Super helpful for me as a facilitator. So what Bloom's taxonomy is it basically allows you to look at your levels of learning and your activities for how high on the cognitive level you're actually teaching something. So for example, if you're teaching something that's like rote memorization, that's the very bottom, which is like not teaching kids too many other skills other than remembering. Then you can go up to like kids understanding what you're seeing, what you're teaching, then applying, then analyzing. And the best form, or like the highest level of cognitive learning, is the creation and evaluation part of it. And so that's where you want to get with your kids, right? There's been some, discussion and debate about the sort of linearity of this, but let's save that for another conversation. So what I did was I mapped AI to Bloom's taxonomy. So like, if we as humans can do all of these things, how well can AI do it? And so at the very bottom, AI can actually remember things better than humans can, right? It can hold 1,000 times more information than we can. So remembering, it's really, really good at. But what's crazy is as soon as you get to the second level of Bloom's taxonomy, which is pretty low down for humans, understanding, AI cannot understand. AI cannot make meaning of what information it has. It can only pattern match. So it is not actually understanding or thinking like humans are. It is not making the same type of comprehension that humans do. It is just pattern matching. One really good example of this is I spoke at a conference last year, and I gave them this example. And one of the superintendents raised his hand and he said, my son wrote a letter, needed to write a letter for a school assignment saying goodbye to racism. And so he used ChatGPT to start his letter. And the letter that ChatGPT created said, "Dear racism, such great times we've had." Right. So the reason it did that was because it pattern matched what great letters are, but it did not know what racism really meant and what the student was actually trying to achieve with the letter, right? It was just sort of blurting out whatever it thought would be like appropriate for the pattern. So it does not understand. Like, you understand, I understand, students understand, AI does not understand. It actually does a really good job at applying and analyzing. So using old information in similar ways and creating those neural networks so that it sort of like create connections. But then when it gets to evaluating, which is making judgments, right? So like using your emotions, using your ethics, using your ability to understand the human condition, all those kind of things, humans can evaluate and make judgments. AI cannot make judgments. AI can make judgments based on patterns, but the way that humans make cognitive leaps from one idea to the next, using your intuition, using your love, using your empathy, using all of those things, AI can't do that. And then when you get to creating, AI can create, but remember, it's remixing content that it has. And because it has billions of pieces of content, it can remix it so it looks like something new, but it can't invent the way that humans can. So this question of, can generative AI think like humans? The answer is no, it can't on sort of like a holistic level, but there are some things that it can do actually better than humans can. So one of the reasons why this is really important for you to know is because you need to understand how you can leverage AI and how you actually have power over AI. Right? You are always going to have, as a human, an advantage over AI, at least for the time being. I don't know where AI is going to go in the next 50 years, but for the time being, you actually have to make the right judgments, and you cannot allow AI to make those judgments for you. The second question, generative AI is not biased. It is unbiased. Is that true or false? Generative AI is not biased. I see a thumbs down. I see a thumbs up. I see some trues, some falses. Okay, I see a lot of falses. Okay, so you're totally right. This group is great. You guys know a lot of stuff about this. So generative AI is biased. So this is false. Generative AI is very biased. And the reason why it's biased is because it uses algorithms that have been created by humans. And those algorithms are focused on the data that they have around the world from the internet. And the internet happens to be very focused on the global north. It happens to be very focused on white males, and it happens to be very focused on the English language. And so the bias basically comes from what the data is, the data that it has, right? So for example, I am the CEO of my company, Ed3 DAO. I asked ChatGPT to generate an image of a CEO. And what you see in front of you is what it generated. It generated a white male. It did not generate an image of me. And so it is quite biased in terms of like what it's producing for you. And that's really important as an educator for you to keep in mind, because when you're using it as a tool, which you should use because it is a beautiful tool. You just want to make sure that you're using your judgment. Remember the judgment and understanding piece? You're using your judgment to say, you know what? I teach in Indigenous communities and this is not representative. So I'm going to use only this part and not this part because I know better than AI. It's really important for you as an educator to know that you know better than AI. Next question, generative AI can detect cheating. So it can differentiate between human and AI outputs. So it can detect cheating. Is that true or false? Can it detect cheating? So like, let's say your student created an essay using ChatGPT. Can it tell that it uses, ChatGPT? I see false, cannot detect cheating. Wow, you guys are great. So no, it can't detect cheating. If you ever get introduced to a tool, if any ed tech company ever tries to sell you a tool that says, my tool can detect whether your kid is using AI or not, it cannot, point blank. It cannot. In fact, OpenAI created a AI detection tool themselves, and they had to redact it within a few weeks because it didn't work. So if the largest AI company can't create AI detection tools, then there are no other companies that can. So please do not get duped into thinking any of these tools can detect cheating. I see a few questions in here. Okay, I'll save those for later. Okay, here's the last one. Generative AI will change our roles as educators. What do you think? True or false? True or false? I see some trues. I see some falses. Oh, I see like a thumbs up bouquet that somebody threw. That was pretty fun. True, some falses. Okay. The answer to this is I don't know. We don't know if this is going to happen. I think I see some somewhats in the chat too. It may, right? It may if we think about teaching in a particular way. If we're thinking about using the same practices that we use in teaching and just using AI to do them faster, then I won't, right? But if we're using AI to reimagine the way that we're learning, to reimagine the student journey, to reimagine our time and our role as educators, then I will. And so it's a little bit of a toss-up. We don't know yet. I am hoping that it will. I am hoping that we are going to be empowered more. We're going to not have to do more these administrative tasks. I'm hoping that our roles are going to be coaches and guides rather than arbiters of information, all that. But we don't quite know yet. Awesome. Okay. So we did another survey, or we had another question in our initial survey, and the question was, how many of you guys are familiar with ChatGPT tools? And the answer was fairly distributed. It looks like about half of you are pretty comfortable, and about half of you have some sort of familiarity with it. So I'm not going to go into the basics of ChatGPT for that reason. I want to make sure I'm responsive to what you guys know and know how to do. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the two tools that we're going to use today to practice some sustainability creation of plans. But I want to just make sure that you guys understand that these AI tools that are out there, so you've got Perplexity, you've got ChatGPT, you've got Gemini, you've got all these other sort of like LLMs that are free to use, often Canva, all these, they are not the same. They are not the same, meaning that you should not feel that you can use any one of them and you'll get the same result. It is not true. The reason for that is because each of these have been built on different LLMs and different algorithms. So each of them kind of do separate things. So think of it as like you have a toolbox and each tool does something different. Same thing with these chat tools. You want to use each one of these at different timings and use them in combination with each other so that you can get the best output. If you're just using ChatGPT all day, you'll be okay, but you're going to be way better if you're using different tools for different reasons. And the reason why I use these two tools in particular together is because Perplexity is particularly good at research. It will actually find sources for you. It will actually identify links and resources to things on the internet that you can consume. Whereas ChatGPT is a lot more creative. It will actually, like the lesson plan generation that we're going to do later, it's much better at doing that than Perplexity is. And so you want to use these tools in conjunction to figure out, well, like, how do I optimize, my sustainability education? So I'm going to talk about the ChatGPT stuff, and I'm going to teach you a particular way to prompt that is going to, I think, change a lot about how you do this. But one person in the survey actually said, I don't even know what sustainability teaching is. And I don't think they meant that like, literally. I think they meant that like ironically, like what does that even mean to us? Like, what do we even mean when we say sustainability teaching? And I thought it was a brilliant question. So I wanted to just like talk about that really quickly. And when I think about sustainability teaching, I often think about it like social emotional learning. How do we actually get students to understand these things in a deeper way instead of just a one-off? So when I think of sustainability teaching, I think about building knowledge about world issues, right? Like what is going on in the world? How do you like access that information? How do you become a self-sustaining learner? How do you like understand and empathize with what's going on? It's also about building the mindsets and the dispositions to be able to understand these issues and take action on them, right? So it's like the empathy, the compassion, the ability to research, all those kind of things. And the last one is building skills to take action. So we're talking about, the ability to critically think about something, or leadership skills, or oration and debate skills, and things like that. So when we talk about sustainability teaching, we're not necessarily saying you need to teach the SDGs all day and every day, or you need to teach a separate subject. We're talking about integrating all of these things into everything that you do. And that's the key here, which is we really want to integrate sustainability teaching into everything. And so there's this concept called durable skills. It's by this organization called America Succeeds. And I really like it because I wouldn't say it's like the best representation of the skills that we want, but it's actually a pretty good, like pretty comprehensive sort of wheel of the things that we want our students to learn. And because this wheel is like hard to read, I actually just picked a few of these skills and put them into these just so that you can read them. So for example, the durable skills that we're talking about here, it has something like character. So like social skills, reliability, ethical conduct. It has mindfulness, the ability to have empathy, compassion, cultural sensitivity, creativity, innovation, imagination, ideation. You want to look at fortitude, which is optimism and self-discipline. And then leadership skills like advocacy, decision making. So these are all actually part of the wheel. And I would encourage you guys to check out this website because it like gives you good ideas for how to think about these durable skills. And all these durable skills, I would argue, are like a direct impact into sustainability teaching. So when we talk about sustainability teaching, how do you do it? Like what is the way that you integrate it into your classroom? And so I thought about like, when I was a teacher, if I wanted to integrate sustainability teaching, how would I do that? Well, there's like low level lifts and there's higher level lifts. There's like low hanging fruits. There's like more intense stuff. So the low hanging fruit for me is like, celebrate focused days of awareness. And we'll talk about Reboot the Future's calendar in a second. So like, how do you like, this is sort of like an easy thing to do. You can have a 15-minute lesson on like celebrating some sort of day of awareness. I'll show you what that looks like on the calendar and how you can get access to those resources. Field trips might be another way. So like experiential learning field trips, sort of, and taking, your kids on something like a museum visit or like a park visit or something like that. Making it a morning routine. So like every morning for 10 minutes, you do X, Y, and Z. When I was a teacher, I used to take my kids on a submarine ride every morning and I made them passports. And every morning for 15 minutes, we explored a new country. We explored the food and the traditions and the clothes and the culture. And it was a really easy thing to do because I got really excited about doing it every morning. The kids got really excited about taking a trip every morning. We like, played this like bubble music where we like went down into the ocean and then like, so it's like you can incorporate it into a morning routine. So it doesn't have to take up a lot of your time during the day, right? You can make it classroom theme. So my classroom theme was under the ocean because I'm obsessed with whales. And so I just wanted my classroom theme to be all about the ocean. And so what was cool about that was I didn't really integrate like any like formal lesson plans into what we were doing, but because there was ocean stuff everywhere, like a corner where there was like facts about whales or another corner that was about, jellyfish or whatever, kids just naturally brought it up all the time. And that allowed us to have conversations about it. And that also made me naturally like build lesson plans or worksheets, or whatever, that were aligned to my classroom theme. So you can make a particular sustainability issue or sustainability itself or regenerative principles into a classroom theme, and that could be helpful. Homework might be another way. So I think homework is, pretty much unnecessary for the world. But if you are required to assign homework, make it all about sustainability, right? Make it, you know, maybe it's a math problem that you're teaching. Maybe you're teaching kids about multiplication. Maybe the homework is, you know, find, you know, examples of how living organisms multiply, right? So it's like things that you can sort of like incorporate that will give people, students, a sense of these sort of like, you know, world sort of living systems and ecosystems. You can create a capstone project. So at the end of the year, I don't know how it is in other countries, but in the US, June is like, you know, not very busy. We kind of just do fun projects and all the tests have been taken, all the report cards have been created. And so we just do fun stuff. And so, you know, doing something like that in June is like an easy way to sort of like have like a year, like a end of the year project where you just focus on that. But, you know, these are all great to do. And, you know, whatever bandwidth you have, whatever capacity you have, you should definitely do. But the ultimate goal, in my opinion, would be this, which is integrating sustainability into every single lesson plan. And you don't have to do that in a way that is like super onerous. You could do that in very small ways. And we'll talk about that through AI. I see hands raised, but I'm just going to keep flying through this just because we lost a little bit of time. And then we'll have a portion at the end for Q&A. So the methodology that we're going to use with prompting is called step prompting. And this is actually a lesser known methodology that I have found it to be extremely useful. And so what step prompting is it gives AI step-by-step instructions instead of a whole prompt at once. So I don't know if you guys have like seen any of these like webinars or any of these sort of like trainings where they're teaching you prompt engineering. I find that to be somewhat useful, but I find it to be largely unuseful because what happens is AI will just sort of like make up stuff. It'll just go down a pathway and you'll like be like, okay, that's not what I wanted. And then you'll give up and feel frustrated and then not do it anymore. And that's what like my husband actually has experienced where I'm like, he's like super techie and I'm like, use AI. And he's just like, no, I tried it and I hate it. It doesn't give me the result I want. And I'm like, well, because you're doing it wrong. So that's what I want to teach today is this step prompting method, which like is complete game changer for how you can actually integrate sustainability education into everything that you do. So the way that step prompting works, so now we're moving from sustainability education to AI, right? So the way that step prompting works is right now, when you give like a whole prompt to, let's say, ChatGPT, you say like, you know, create a lesson plan for me that is aligned to my standards and includes sustainability and is 4th grade and is STEM and blah, blah, blah. Give it this big, long prompt. What it does is it just shoots in the dark based on whatever information you're giving it. So basically, if your target is here, it might actually go in many different directions. And by the time it reaches like the end point, you're just like, oh my God, this is so much information. How do I actually like backtrack this and make it actually like useful for me? So what step prompting does is it actually allows you to give it a little bit of information, then give it feedback, then give it more information, then give it feedback so that you can basically guide it to the outcome that you want. So instead of it just sort of like one big thing and it just goes wherever it goes, instead you can actually very methodically bring it to the target point that you need, right? And so another way to think about this is like a human standards. There's a colleague and a community member at Ed3 DAO who often talks about this called Scott Myers. He just built an app called Chipp.ai. You guys should check it out. But he often says like, you know, AI, think of using AI like a sandwich. Like you can't just, it can't be an AI sandwich. It has to be a human AI, human AI, human AI, human sandwich so that you're always giving it feedback and you're always like creating parameters for the AI for how you really want it to operate. Otherwise, it's just going to go off and it'll just be frustrating because it's going to go off on a direction that you don't want it to go in. So I wanted to actually show you what this looks like. So these are some of the 3 things that you guys mentioned in your survey that you were having trouble doing, which is finding resources, creating activities or lesson plans, and then aligning it to your standard and syllabus. So we're going to actually do this live. Hopefully it'll work with the sharing and stuff. So the first thing is finding resources. And the 2 places that I would recommend starting is 1, Global Dimension, which is the calendar that Reboot the Future has, and then 2, Perplexity. So let's do this live. Can you all, no, you can't, let me reshare. reshare my entire screen. Here we go. Okay. So this is right here. This link, the Global Dimension Calendar, this is something Reboot the Future created. And what it does is, remember that like right here, this thing we talked about right here, which is like you can celebrate focused days of awareness. So this is where this comes in. So what Reboot the Future has done very, very, kindly, I guess, is they have actually aggregated every single event that is related to awareness of sustainability events across the world. And so what you can do is you can click into them and you can find the relevant resources. So let's do that. So today is April 30th. So I'm going to go into May. Tomorrow is International Workers' Day. So I'm going to click into that. And I'm going to go down and I'm going to see it has some information about what it is and how to approach it. And then very cool, it also has resources for how I can actually use it. Now there's 4 resources here and other, if you click into each one of those calendars, you'll see that there are other resources. But you know what? I'm a 3rd grade teacher and none of this is really appealing to me. And, although this is like great resources and I might want to read it later, I'm not quite sure where I want to go with this yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pick up what Reboot the Future has created here, which is like about this event and how to approach it. I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to go into Perplexity. And Perplexity is the one that's really good for research. And I'm going to say, I want to create a 15-minute lesson plan for the following day of awareness. Can you give me 5 resources that might be appropriate for my 3rd grade class? And now I'm going to paste in what Reboot the Future has, right? So all I asked for is 5 resources. I'm going to say include links to videos, articles, or case studies. Because that's what we were struggling with earlier, right? We wanted like access to all of these resources that might be appropriate for my 3rd grade class. And then I'm going to click go. And this is a free version, by the way. And this is my prompt. And then here's what it came up with. It came up with videos, articles, case studies, and they're all linked right here, right? So I can click on any one of these and I can go to any of these activities. Now, the thing that I don't love about this is that it's giving me like activities when I wanted resources like this, like the video, all of this. So I'm going to click here. So this is what is International Worker Days. Okay, this is interesting. I want to check this out. I'm going to click on this thing. And is there a video here that I can access? There's probably a video somewhere here that I can access. So it's leading me to the video that I can access. This is actually not that great. So you know what? I'm going to give it a little bit more feedback. I'm going to say, I just want the links to the videos and the articles. I don't need lesson plan activities yet. Please just give me the links. So now it's actually producing the actual links that we need, right? So now it's got the articles here. So for example, let's see if this did it right this time. The History of Labor Unions from Scholastic. This is a little bit better, but you can keep working on it. The last time I actually did this, it did produce some of the links that I needed. And so one of the things that it also does is it will also then create your activities for you. But the thing with Perplexity is it's only really, I mean, it's pretty good at it, but it's not as good as ChatGPT. So what I would do is, for example, it says here, this is an activity it proposes, which is make a Labor Day poster. So what I would do is I would grab this. Here's the next part. Oh, actually, let me go back to my presentation. Okay, so right now we're at the level where we are using Global Dimension and Perplexity to basically find the resources and the videos that we need. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to create the activities. And this is the sort of lesson planning part that I was talking about. And so here it says we've got some videos, we've got some articles, we've got some activities here. It actually has an activity here that is kind of interesting, but maybe I don't love it. So I'm going to grab it, and then I'm going to go to ChatGPT. And I'm going to use the free version of it. And I'm going to say, I want to create a 15-minute lesson plan about the following activity. And then I'm going to post the activity in there. Can you elaborate on it and give me the details for how I can implement this, along with all the resources I need and the steps to do it? So I press enter there, and then it gives me a fully formed lesson plan, right? So it's giving me objectives, material needed, introduction. Now, the way that, the thing that's really important to note here is I didn't ask for all of this information at once, right? I asked for the resources first, and then I asked for it for the activities. Now what you want to do is you want to keep honing it even more. And so, for example, it's given me this, this lesson plan. Now I want to say, I really like this concept of teaching students about labor, about, what is this day called again? Workers' Day? International Workers' Day.
International Workers' Day, yeah.
About International Workers' Day, but I want to incorporate it into my STEM lesson plan. And then I'm going to go to, let's say we go to here. So Rebecca sent me the Department of Education science programs and a bunch of other curricula that you guys have to adhere to. Well, the UK teachers have to adhere to. You have your own versions of it in India or wherever you're coming from. And so what I might do here is I might go into whatever I need to teach. So for example, let's say I need to teach about plants, right? So here, the goal is that pupils need to be taught to identify and name a variety of plants and identify and describe. So I might take these objectives, grab them, go into ChatGPT and say, this is what I'm teaching today. Or not today, this week. And I'll just put in the first one, which is identifying and naming a common variety of wild and garden plants. How do I incorporate International Workers' Day, which is like a totally different thing than this? I've never done this before, by the way. I don't know how this can turn out. With this plant unit I'm teaching. And then maybe you can give it a few more parameters. You can say, I want to make sure the main focus is on plants and I can achieve my objectives. I also want to make sure there is some sort of experiential learning. Please generate some ideas. Okay, let's see what happens. So first, it gives you some encouragement. This is my favorite part about ChatGPT. It will always encourage you. It'll say, I really like this concept. Oh, sorry. It'll say, incorporating workers in ChatGPT is a unique opportunity to explore the intersection of botany, agriculture, and labor. So it like gives you some encouragement for what you're doing, which is great. And then it gives you all these examples of how you can actually integrate it. So now you're teaching the standards and the things that you already need to teach, but you're also incorporating the stuff that is coming from your calendar, right? So you're seeing field trip to a local farm, maybe bring a guest speaker in, hands-on planting activity, research project where you're talking about the significance of agriculture and actually highlighting the role of agriculture workers, which is where the worker part comes in. So it does a really good job at being creative and aligning those two things, right? So that's really sort of like the magic of it. So I'm going to pause there, actually, because I know I've given you so much information, and I know a lot of you have a lot of questions. And so I'm going to, the last thing I'll say before I open the floor up to questions, which is, this is the sort of like spectrum you want to be thinking about as you're thinking about lesson planning. And you can focus on each of these using these AI tools. So what we just did was celebrating Focus Days of Awareness, but you could use the exact same methodology to make it a morning routine. You could use the exact same methodology to integrate it into every single lesson plan, right? So you just want to make sure that like you have a goal in mind. And I would encourage you, like, start small, right? You don't have to go all the way to the red, like, and do these sort of extreme things. If you feel like, you know what, I just want to experiment a little bit, I want to see what happens, start small. And then as you build your capacity and your ability to use these tools, then you can go really deep. And the other thing to always remember is, like, this is really what we're working towards when we talk about sustainability education, right? We're talking about durable skills that help people build knowledge about world issues, that build mindsets and dispositions to help them take action, and then building skills to take action. So I'm going to pause. I will leave my slide here for now, maybe here for now. And I'll ask, does anyone have any questions? And Bruna said there's some questions already. So question is, younger learners, maybe, how could you do this with adult learners and those in late teens? So it's actually much better with late teens and adult and older learners, because you can do two things with them. Number one is you can generate this content for them and basically create more adult-centered activities. And what you can tell ChatGPT or Perplexity is you can say, this is for an adult learning class. This is for an 18-year-old. Like, I need you to, like, think about developmental research about 18-year-olds. One of the things that I really love to do when I use ChatGPT is whatever pedagogy I really believe in. So let's say I'm like a Montessori teacher, or let's say for the older ages, I believe in project-based learning or inquiry-based learning. I will find the right framework for that. So let's say PBL works, and then I will feed that into ChatGPT, and I will say, use the PBL works frameworks to develop a lesson plan. And then it'll match it just to that lesson plan, right? So it's doing a lot of that heavy lifting for you. Of course, remember, I will never stop saying this, you are the judge. It might give you garbage, and you need to make sure that you are assessing that yourself, because you are the expert. The other thing you can do with older adults, so you don't want AI to be used with anyone under 13, because AI models are not safe yet. Again, no matter what any tech company tells you, AI models for under 13 are not safe yet. So you need supervised access if you are allowing students to use it. I do encourage my niece and nephew to use it, but I am always supervising them to make sure that there's nothing dangerous there. But for over 13 or over 16, they can use these AI tools themselves. So you can actually teach them how to, so for example, if you're doing a sustainability lesson that's tied to plants, to agriculture like we did before, you can actually say to your students, each of you open up ChatGPT and create a project that is aligned to plant, to agriculture and worker, International Workers' Day, and come up with an idea that you're going to actually pursue with your group. And you can actually have them use ChatGPT to create this. But remember, you have to have it supervised, especially for younger students. You have to have it supervised. Another question is softwares detect to AI generate text. I don't quite understand. That's not quite a question. So Bruna, if you want to add some clarity to that. Plagiarism in AI, sure. So there's this sort of issue with AI, which is that AI, the way that it generates content is that it takes all of the information from the internet. So it's taking billions of pieces of data that you and I have put on the internet to make open source. And it's taking that and then it's recombining it and producing new content. So what that means that if an artist has put a piece of art available on the internet to sort of like show people, but not necessarily sell it or sell their IP, AI can take that and it can actually regenerate it. So I can say, like, create artwork in the style of Van Gogh, and it will do that. Now, that's not AI's IP, that's Van Gogh's IP. But because AI is taking information from the internet, this is where the sort of like, IP issues come from. And this is where the plagiarism issues also come from. So like, for example, if a student wants to generate an essay or generate an assignment and they use AI to do it, it's not their own words, right? It's somebody else's words, or it's a combination of somebody else's words. And so the way that I encourage people to think about AI use with students is never make the assignment or the work that student is doing contingent upon the output. Make it contingent upon the process, right? So like, it's not about the essay that the student generates is the assignment. It's about the process they used in order to generate that essay. How are they providing feedback to the output? How are they revising it? How are they making it personalized? How are they making it, something that's, their voice? And like AI can't make it their voice necessarily unless they feed like hundreds of points of data. So like the student really has to do the work there. And so focusing on the process of learning is a much better solution than focusing on the output. And I hate to scare everybody, but the reality is that these tools will be integrated into everything that we do. And so we can no longer protect students from using AI to generate these things. So it's good for us to start focusing on the process now before the plagiarism issue, the cheating issue, becomes like a bigger thing. Question is routines. Okay, yep. So I don't know how to say your name, Negan or Negan. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, but it's a really good point. You want to integrate it into everything you do and make it routinized. Is this AI advisable for students between 7 to 12? So you as an educator can absolutely use it as an aid to save your time, to build better lesson plans. Another thing you can do with this AI, so when we're talking about step prompting, here is number 4, I would add, is differentiation. So basically, once you create the base for what you want to teach, you can actually create 10 different versions of that. And you can say to AI, like, well, I have a student who, is dyslexic. So like, what do I do to create, content for that student? Now, again, I'm going to say this again. You are the expert. AI is not a dyslexic teacher, expert, or does not know, is not assigned to studying dyslexia, right? It is only using its information that it has on the internet, but it can give you a pretty good start. It can give you a pretty good way to sort of like think about the differentiation needs for your students. Maybe it's students who, maybe you want to create 3 sets of content, one for students who are a little bit more advanced, one for students who are a little bit below average, and students who are sort of like operating more on grade level, and you can create those resources within a second, right? It's very fast to generate. Are there any paid versions of the tools you think are especially valuable? So I personally use ChatGPT 4 instead of ChatGPT 3.5. 3.5 is free. 4 is not. And the reason I use 4 is because it allows you to upload your content. So I can upload my lesson plans or my unit plans, and I can say, let's say I want to upload my art lesson plans. I'm an art teacher, and I could say, these are my art lesson plans for the entire year. I want you to integrate sustainability education into every single lesson plan. And then it will actually do that for you, which is like mind-blowing, right? So it's like you can actually upload things and it will actually give you feedback on that content. ChatGPT 4 can also browse the internet. So ChatGPT 3.5 only browses up to 2021. ChatGPT 4 browses the internet in real time the way that Perplexity free does. So if you have the paid version of ChatGPT, you may actually not need Perplexity, but although I would argue Perplexity is actually still better at finding links. So ChatGPT 4, if it's 20 bucks a month, if you can afford it, I would recommend getting it for a month, seeing if it makes a difference in your instruction. And if it does, hold on to it. I think it does for me. Free versions, are they sufficient? Absolutely. Free versions are absolutely sufficient. You can 10x your productivity and your efficiency as a teacher and enhance your lesson plans 10x with the free versions. You can 20x them with the paid versions, but 10x is pretty good. 10x is pretty awesome. What was the third thing? AI find resource creativities. There it is. You have it on the screen. The outcome software detect as AI generated text questions. How can other softwares distinguish what is human? Okay, no software can distinguish human and AI generated content right now. There is research out there. There are case studies out there where people have tried. You just can't do it. So if there's any tools that have been introduced to you and they're like, well, we can differentiate between like what AI produces and what humans produce, you just can't. One funny thing about AI is that most AI is very verbose. It uses very florid language. And so when you ask it to produce something, let's say a proposal or a lesson plan or like an essay, it will use a lot of words, just very, very wordy. And so that is one way of detecting it as a human, because you can sort of kind of tell. The other thing, I was at a conference one time and one teacher said the most brilliant thing. She said, the best AI cheating detection tool is the teacher. Because teachers know better, know students better, and know their work better than anyone else. So if the student starts producing like incredible work all of a sudden, and that's not really what they produce generally, then you're like, okay, well, there's something weird going on here. Let's like figure this out, right? So the teacher is probably the best attendance tool ever. Okay, Oliver, how can we regularly design learning activities without having to start from scratch? How about creating one's own GPT with a depth of info? Okay, so that's a great question. So there's actually quite a few tools out there where you can create your own GPTs. And what that means is you can program a tool, an AI chatbot, to basically know all the things that you want it to know. And then every single time you ask it a question, it will go back to the memory it has that you've given it. So for example, I can create a project-based learning tool that always remembers that every single lesson that I want to create is based on the PBL Works framework. It will always remember that I am a UK teacher and that it needs to keep my standards in mind. It will always remember that I really enjoy like hands-on learning, and so it will include hands-on learning. It will always remember those things. And there's two tools that I use pretty regularly that are pretty great. One of them is a nonprofit tool called PlayLab AI. So if you go to PlayLab AI, you can create your own GPT. And here it's basically like you give it, you use step prompting. Actually, what I taught you today is what you use to create these. And you basically, train it to do what you want it to do, and then it'll do that. One of the things that we're doing at Ed3 DAO is we're actually creating free versions of these for you guys based on different pedagogies. So we're going to create one for PBL, we're going to create one for Montessori, we're going to create one for Reggio Emilia, and we're going to make them freely available to you. So that's coming in the next few months. So if you want to get more information about that, go to ed3dao.com and sign in to our Mighty Networks, and we're going to send emails about that soon. The other app that I often use is Chipp.ai. It's the exact same thing that PlayLab does, but it's just a different company that does it. This was actually created by one of our community members, and you can get started for free. I'll show you what I did with mine. So my mom's a diabetic, and she's a vegetarian, and she finds it hard to find like vegetarian diabetic meals. So I actually created an app for her using this AI. It took me about 15 minutes. My mom's name is Indu, and I called it the Indu's Vegetarian Diabetic Chef. And so basically, I gave it all of these rules. I said, this GPT provides vegetarian and diabetic-friendly dishes with calorie counts. It avoids the use of kale because my mom's allergic to kale. It makes suggestions about what to make based on ingredients, the mood of the user, any information. It recommends things that are always vegetarian and only 60 grams of carbohydrates. There's all this stuff that like she's always struggling with. And so I gave it to her, and I gave her a link to it, and she has no idea that I did any of this on the back end. And then she basically, will type in things that she needs on that day, and it'll give her everything. And then it'll always remember that she's allergic to kale. It'll always remember to be vegetarian. So it basically created a chat. So you can do that for education. You can do that for anything. Great. Let's go back to this. There is an AI with WhatsApp. I'm not sure, Judges. I haven't used it, and I'm not sure. Just remember that whatever apps you're using, think back. So use your first principles thinking to think back who makes them. So WhatsApp is controlled by Meta, right? It's owned by Meta. And so whatever AI they're using is probably created by Meta. Meta is not affiliated with OpenAI or with Perplexity or by Google or whatever. And so I don't know, they read about them, read about whether Meta's AI is as good as the other ones. And it's very easy to find out. You can sort of like Google it or even ChatGPT, it'll tell you. So you basically, like, I don't know what the answer to that is. You might be able to do some research. I find ChatGPT and Perplexity to be like my duo tool that I use all the time. But, experimenting with new tools is awesome. Okay, so we have about 20 minutes left till the end of the session. All of you guys have stuck around. Oh my God, this is like probably the first time where people haven't that means I must be really engaging. Thank you guys for staying. So what I'd like to do is I'd like you all to experiment a little bit. If you don't have ChatGPT already, create an account right now. If you don't have Perplexity, you don't actually have to sign up. You can actually just go to the website and you can actually start typing. And what I want you to do is I want you to use, to pick one of these, right? So pick one type of experience that you want. So do you want to make a morning routine with sustainability? Do you want to create a capstone project? Do you want to integrate it into your lesson? Pick one of these and then use the step prompting technique to get the sustainability sort of outcome that you want. Now you can use the SDGs. Most of you said in the survey that most of you are familiar with the SDGs, which is great. You can use the SDGs as another input. And so what I want you to do is first go to Perplexity. So open up Perplexity on your web browser or on your cell phone, either one is fine. And then put in some topic that you want resources for. And if you want to go again to the Global Dimensions calendar and check out any of these events that are happening in the next few days. So for example, on May 3rd, you've got World Press Freedom Day. On May 5th, you've got African World Heritage Day. You can grab the content there, and then you can copy this and then go into Perplexity and say, I want 5 resources, links to videos, articles, or case studies that would help me teach this content, right? So just start there. All right, friends, please take the survey. Really, really would be helpful for us. And again, if we want to do more of these, we do want to do more of these, and we'll probably send out another survey asking like, what do you want to learn about and what do you want to dig deeper into, and we can do more of that. The other thing that I would recommend you guys do is check out Ed3DAO.com. We're a nonprofit. We try to do as much for free as we can. We have a global AI events bank. This is actually pretty cool. So we've gathered every AI event we could find for education, and you can literally find every AI event around the world that you can potentially attend. Some of them are free, some of them are paid, but like this is your one-stop shop, so you never have to miss another AI event again, and you can learn a ton from this stuff. So I would check that out. We're hosting a 30-day AI challenge in the next couple of months. It's probably going to start in June, where we're going to actually give you a 10-minute activity with our community members, and you're going to complete that 10-minute activity, and people are going to give you feedback, and you're going to learn about something different about AI every day. And all the resources that we're using for this challenge are actually created by our community members. So they're like really cool, like, you know, blogs and articles that everybody has sort of like created. And the last thing is, this might not be as useful to folks outside of the United States for the continuing education units. But regardless, we've got these courses that we have. They're very cheaply priced. We partner with this organization, this university called Idaho State. And we do these courses where they're asynchronous, self-paced, and you can take these courses and learn about things like universal design for learning and AI. We're going to publish a few more about Montessori and Reggio Emilia and all that kind of stuff. And so you can take those. If you're based in the United States, you actually get 3 credits for continuing education to apply to your teaching certificates or whatever. And then if you're outside of the US, you get the knowledge at least. Again, they're pretty cheaply priced. In fact, they're actually giving away free credits right now. So if you click on that link and then you click on Idaho State, you can actually take one of these courses for free if you wanted. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop presenting, and that way you can see my face a little bit bigger. And thank you guys for hanging on.